Friday, December 17th, 2021, and this is the Washington Times Front Page. Thanks for joining us. I'm George Gerbo. The Front Page is brought to you by the Leadership Institute. The Leadership Institute trains conservatives to defend freedom. They've just published a free guide to help conservatives like you navigate political conversations with liberal family members during the holiday season. As a Front Page listener, you can get a free copy of this guide today by visiting leadershipinstitute.org/Christmas. The federal government has pulled out of negotiations to pay massive settlements to illegal immigrant families separated at the border during the Trump administration, attorneys for the families said. The American Civil Liberties Union, which had been leading negotiations on the reported $450,000 payments, said the talks have ended, though it didn't know why. Stephen Dinan reports immigrant rights activists called the move an act of political cowardice. The payments have become unpopular politically for the Biden administration, with polls showing the public decidedly opposed to the idea. Faced with that opposition, the ACLU launched an ad campaign in the D.C. region this week to try to amp up the pressure on President Biden to repair the damage to the families. By Thursday, the organization acknowledged that negotiations had failed. The Pentagon says nearly 4,000 U.S. soldiers have refused a COVID-19 vaccine and could be pushed out of the Army beginning next month. A day after its vaccination deadline Wednesday, Ben Wolfgang reports the Army said 468,459 active duty soldiers, or about 98%, had received at least one dose of a vaccine. About 96% of soldiers are fully vaccinated. Even with the high level of compliance, however, 3,864 soldiers are unvaccinated and don't have pending or approved exemptions. Those soldiers join thousands of Marines, airmen, and sailors who have also refused COVID-19 immunization. The Army says it has relieved 6 active duty leaders from their posts, including 2 battalion commanders, for refusing to comply with the vaccine order. The Marine Corps says it has separated 103 Marines who refused the vaccine, and the Air Force discharged more than 24 members this week for the same reason. Another place dealing with COVID-19 related issues, the world of sports. Matt Paras and Jacob Calvin-Meyer report more than 160 players across the NFL, NBA, and NHL have tested positive just this week, including 21 on the Washington football team. That's left all 3 leagues scrambling to adjust protocols and find ways to curb the rapid spread of the coronavirus. The NFL announced it would include more ways for vaccinated players to return from quarantine. Notably, asymptomatic players can return as soon as they can produce 2 negative tests in the same day, easing the barrier for entry. The changes, however, don't include daily testing, something the Players' Union has been pushing for. The NFL maintains that is unnecessary. The Front Page is brought to you by the Leadership Institute. The Leadership Institute trains conservatives to defend freedom. They've just published a free guide to help conservatives like you navigate political conversations with liberal family members during the holiday season. As a Front Page listener, you can get a free copy of this guide today by visiting leadershipinstitute.org/Christmas. The Treasury Department has blacklisted 8 Chinese companies as part of a campaign to punish what U.S. officials say is corporate support for China's illicit surveillance of minority Uyghurs and other groups. Bill Gertz, Ryan Lovelace, and Joseph Clark report the Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control said the 8 firms were linked to biometric surveillance and tracking in China. That includes the western Xinjiang province, where the State Department in January declared genocide against the local Muslim Uyghur population. The technology companies were also sanctioned under a June order from President Biden designed to prevent American securities from financing the Chinese military. Those sanctions prohibit U.S. companies from buying or selling specific publicly traded securities linked to the companies. And finally, D.C. Public Schools is preparing to rename an elementary school on Capitol Hill as part of a system-wide initiative. Brent Elementary School in Southeast, named for Robert Brent, who served 10 years as mayor of Washington City and created the district's public school system, is among a handful of schools in a renaming engagement process. Sean Salai reports the school district aims to erase the names of slave owners and segregationists from school buildings in the 2023-2024 academic year. Advisory Neighborhood Commissioner Corey Holman notes that Brent was a slaveholder who instituted black laws that made it illegal for non-whites to be outside after 10 p.m. and required them to carry identification at all times. Find all of today's front page stories at WashingtonTimes.com/frontpage or on the Washington Times app, and find us on all of your favorite podcast platforms just by searching Washington Times in your favorite podcast app. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Wash Times for breaking news, sports, commentary, and more. For the Washington Times, I'm George Gerbo.